The night was alive with neon lights and restless shadows. A city that never truly slept, yet always seemed haunted by its own ghosts. Somewhere on the Sunset Strip, music pulsed. Laughter spilled into the streets, and lives collided in ways that would be remembered only in whispers. Amid the chaos, one name lingered like a fading flame: River Phoenix. He was supposed to be untouchable, the golden boy of Hollywood, the face of a brighter future. But the truth was darker. The truth was that even the brightest stars can fall, and when they do, they leave behind nothing but questions, mysteries, and the kind of silence that feels heavier than sound. River's story did not begin on the pavement outside the Viper Room. It began long before that, in the unlikeliest of places, a life both fragile and wild, shaped by ideals, contradictions, and a fate that seemed written in shadows. To understand his end, you must first step into the strange, tangled world of his beginning. He was born on August 23, 1970, in Madras, Oregon, though the place seemed irrelevant compared to the journey that would follow. His parents, John and Arlen, were seekers-drifters chasing higher meaning, belonging to a group that called itself the Children of God. It was no ordinary upbringing. There were no steady homes, no ordinary comforts, no grounding in the kind of reality most children knew. River's childhood was marked by constant movement, his family migrating across borders, across continents, chasing something elusive, an idea of freedom, of spirituality, of escape. But the children of God were no haven. Behind the promises of enlightenment, there were whispers of darkness, of practices that left scars on many who grew up inside its circle. River would carry those shadows with him forever, even if he rarely spoke of them. They shaped his earliest memories, marked his soul with contradictions he never quite escaped. By the time the family left the group and struggled their way back to the United States, River was already different. He was not just a boy. He was an old soul in a child's body. Sensitive, gifted, strangely aware. He picked up a guitar, and it felt as if the music was already inside him, waiting. He spoke of nature, of purity, of compassion, as though he could see through the corruption of the adult world. Hollywood would come to call him a prodigy. But those who truly watched him knew he was more than that. He was a contradiction in human form. When the Phoenix family finally planted roots in Los Angeles, it was not stability they found, but struggle. They were poor, living in cramped spaces, hustling just to eat. Street corners became their stage. River and his siblings playing guitars and singing for coins, while passers-by saw only charm and talent, not the desperation behind it. But it was in those moments, with his voice rising above the noise of the city, that River began to catch attention. Something about him was undeniable. His presence, his glow, the way he carried both innocence and wisdom. Hollywood has a way of noticing, of devouring. Agents saw potential. Casting directors saw dollar signs, and soon, River found himself stepping into auditions, commercials, small roles. He was barely a teenager when the machine began to claim him. For River, it was an escape from poverty. For his family, it was survival. But for Hollywood, it was the discovery of a new star, one that could burn bright enough to sell dreams. River's breakthrough came with Stand By Me, the 1986 coming-of-age film that would immortalize him as Chris Chambers, the troubled yet tender boy whose eyes carried the weight of a life too heavy for his age. It was more than a role. It was River. He wasn't acting. He was channeling something raw, something real. Critics saw genius. Audiences saw vulnerability. Hollywood saw the birth of a legend. Yet, behind the applause, River remained caught between two worlds. The purity of his ideals and the corruption of the stage he was forced to stand upon. He spoke about vegetarianism, about protecting the environment, about peace. But he also walked into parties where the air was thick with smoke and temptation. He wanted to save the world, but he was also trying to save himself from the claws of an industry that never forgives weakness. As his fame grew, so did the pressure. Interviews painted him as ethereal, untouchable, yet those who were close knew the truth. The river was fragile. He was vulnerable. He was a boy trying to carry the weight of being everyone's hope, everyone's dream, everyone's symbol of purity in a city that thrived on sin. The expectations were crushing, and the cracks were beginning to show. Hollywood has always loved its rebels, its tragic icons, its beautiful ghosts. And in the river, they had all three. He embodied a new James Dean, a soul destined to live fast, burn bright, and leave behind ashes that would be studied, speculated upon, mythologized. But unlike James Dean, River's story was laced with even deeper contradictions. He was not reckless for the sake of thrill. He was reckless because he was searching for freedom, for escape, for silence in a world that never stopped demanding more. There were moments, fleeting but clear, when River seemed to know. He would talk about death with a strange calmness, as if he understood that his time was borrowed. Friends would later recall his words, his quiet warnings, his sense of something inevitable pressing down upon him. But back then, it was easy to dismiss, easy to chalk it up to River's sensitivity, his tendency to live on the edge of philosophy and reality. The years passed, and the roles stacked up running on empty. My Own Private Idaho, The Mosquito Coast. Each performance was a piece of himself, carved out and placed on screen for the world to dissect. But with each role, he seemed to lose more of himself. The more the world loved him, the more he disappeared into the weight of their expectations. And then came the darkness. It was whispered, hidden behind closed doors, denied by those who wanted to preserve the image of River, the golden boy. But drugs had found their way into his world. At first, they were a temptation, a way to escape the pressure, to quiet the noise. Then, they became something else, something he couldn't fully control. His family worried, his friends noticed, but Hollywood looked the other way. After all, a broken genius still sells tickets. By the early 1990s, River was no longer just an actor. He was a symbol, a myth in the making. He walked red carpets with a haunted look in his eyes, gave interviews that drifted between brilliance and melancholy, played his guitar as though it were a lifeline. And yet, behind the camera, his life was slipping through his fingers. He was barely in his 20s, but he looked like a man carrying centuries of sorrow. The stage was set, the players gathering, the world watching. And somewhere in the shadows, fate was waiting. Because Hollywood doesn't just make stars, it buries them. And River Phoenix was already standing on the edge of his own grave, long before the world realized it. River's rise was never gentle. It was meteoric, sudden, the kind of ascent that blinds everyone watching. Hollywood was hungry for new blood, and River was exactly what it craved: youthful, pure, yet carrying that dangerous undercurrent of vulnerability. Studios saw him as bankable, directors saw him as malleable brilliance, and fans saw him as something almost divine. But River himself saw something else. He saw the trap. It is easy to imagine him walking through the backlots of Warner Brothers, his hair falling across his forehead, his smile unguarded, but his eyes calculating, always aware of the cameras that never truly turned off. Even as a teenager, River felt the weight of being watched. He knew the whispers, the expectations, the pressure to stay golden. And he tried. He truly did. He played the role of the gentle activist, the boy who would save animals, who would sing with his siblings about peace, who would refuse to touch meat or leather. To the public, this only added to his allure. River Phoenix was not just an actor, he was an ideal. But ideals can be cages, and cages can crush. His siblings reigned Joaquin liberty, and Summer were all dragged into the orbit of show business alongside him. They formed a strange constellation, a family bound by poverty, by survival, by the need to protect one another from a world that only valued them for their shine. River often felt responsible for them, the eldest, the one who had to carry the torch. But responsibility has a way of stealing freedom. And River, more than anything, longed to be free. He found that freedom on set sometimes, when the camera rolled and he could disappear into another soul. In Running on Empty, he played Danny Pope, the son of fugitive radicals forced to live a life of constant change, constant lies. It was a role too close to his own reality, and River's performance bled with authenticity. The critics raved, the Academy noticed, and soon River was nominated for an Oscar at just 18 years old. The world declared him the next great actor of his generation. But inside, River recoiled. He didn't crave trophies. He craved honesty, truth, a life untouched by the machinery of Hollywood. But the louder he tried to whisper his truth, the louder the world screamed for him to perform. It was around this time that River began to drift toward a darker crowd. Fame brings doors, and doors lead to rooms where shadows thrive. Clubs pulsed with music, drinks flowed freely, powders passed from hand to hand in dim corners. River would show up sometimes, smiling, polite, almost saintly, as though he were out of place. Yet, as the nights wore on, he allowed himself to indulge, to experiment, to test the boundaries of his body and mind. Drugs were never his identity, not yet, but they were seeds quietly planted. Seeds that would grow in silence until they strangled him. Yet when he appeared in public, he was flawless. The world saw only the genius, the fragile beauty, the voice of conscience in a corrupt industry. They didn't see the exhaustion, the pressure, the quiet tears shed when no one was looking. He was a young man with too much weight on his shoulders, and though he smiled through it, his friends knew. They saw the cracks. They heard the strange, fatalistic way he sometimes spoke, as if he knew his life would be brief. And then came Gus Van Sant's My Own Private Idaho, a film about hustlers, about loneliness, about searching for belonging in the unlikeless places. River's portrayal of Mike, a narcoleptic street kid drifting through the underbelly of Portland, was devastating. He bared himself completely, his performance so raw that even years later, it feels like watching a confession rather than a character. He improvised scenes, poured his soul into the role, and left audiences shattered. That film cemented him as more than just a star. It made him a legend. But legends burn fast. The darker side of Hollywood grew bolder around him. He found himself at parties where the air was heavy with heroin smoke, where cocaine lined tables like decorations, where the glitter of fame masked the rot underneath. River was drawn to music, to late-night jam sessions, to friends who lived on the edge. The Viper Room hadn't entered the story yet, but other clubs had. Each one a step closer to the abyss. Still, he tried to balance it. River was never fully lost to excess, at least not then. He continued to speak out for animals, for the environment, for causes that gave him meaning. He gave money to charities, wrote songs about compassion, and tried to use his fame as a force for good. But every time he stood in front of cameras and declared himself pure, the pressure doubled. What happens when the saint sins? What happens when the golden boy stumbles? For River, the fear of being exposed was constant. He wanted to be perfect, but perfection is impossible in a world designed to corrupt. Those closest to him noticed the changes. His once bright eyes sometimes dulled. His frame, always slender, grew thinner. There were stories half-whispered, never confirmed, of nights when he would vanish, only to reappear hours later, jittery, nervous, haunted. Friends covered for him. Family tried to guide him. But River was caught in a storm of his own making, a storm fed by the Hollywood machine. Meanwhile, roles continued to flood in. Studios wanted him for blockbusters, for franchises, for films that would catapult him into superstardom. But River resisted. He turned down scripts, avoided mainstream formulas, gravitated instead toward projects that challenged him. He didn't want to be just another actor on the studio payroll. He wanted to create art, to speak truth, to give meaning to his work. But meaning doesn't pay bills the way blockbusters do, and his refusal to play by the rules only deepened his struggle. In the early 90s, River retreated into music more than ever. He formed a band, a Lakers addict, with his sister Rain. They toured, recorded, and poured their hearts into their songs. For River, music was freedom in its purest form. No scripts, no directors, no expectations, just sound flowing from soul to strings. But music didn't give him the kind of fame or stability that Hollywood demanded. And in the cracks between films and tours, River's private battles grew fiercer. It is said that during these years, River began to use harder drugs in secret. He was seen less often in public, and when he was, he looked tired, sometimes frail. He spoke passionately about saving the planet, yet at night he was trying to save himself from the weight crushing him. It was a double life, and double lives always collapsed. By the time he took roles in Sneakers and The Thing Called Love, River was balancing on a razor's edge. His performances remained strong, but behind the scenes, friends grew worried. The shadows were darker now, the temptations harder to resist. He would play music until dawn, hang with friends in smoky rooms, experiment with powders and pills that dulled the pressure. And yet, the next morning, he would appear on set, professional, luminous, as though nothing was wrong. It was a dangerous illusion, one that only those closest to him could see through. And then, like a storm brewing on the horizon, a place began to take center stage in his life, a nightclub on Sunset Boulevard, co-owned by Johnny Depp, a place where Hollywood's wildest gathered, where the nights stretched into oblivion, where stars walked among shadows. A place called the Viper Room. River had no idea, not yet, that this place would become his tomb. For now, it was just another venue, another space to play music, to mingle, to exist in a world where everyone pretended they weren't falling apart. But the air inside the Viper Room was different. It carried something darker, more dangerous. And River Phoenix, already fragile, already cracking, would not escape it. The nights leading up to Halloween of 1993 were filled with tension, with chaos, with a sense of inevitability. River was working on multiple projects, exhausted, stretched thin. His band was restless, his acting career at a crossroads, his relationships strained. And in the shadows, the drugs tightened their grip. Friends recalled his paranoia, his jitters, the way he sometimes seemed lost in his own skin. He was 23, but he felt ancient, worn, as if he had lived lifetimes. And then came that final week, the one that would end in tragedy, the one that would etch his name into Hollywood's book of lost legends. But that night, the night the world would never forget, has not yet arrived. For now, River was still walking, still breathing, still playing his guitar in smoky rooms and telling himself that tomorrow would be different. But tomorrow never came, because Hollywood doesn't let go once it has its grip. And River Phoenix, for all his brilliance, for all his purity, for all his desperate attempts to rise above, was already falling. The question was not if. The question was when the night air was heavy with neon and cigarette smoke, the kind of restless pulse that only Los Angeles could conjure. River's voice echoed faintly as he laughed, soft and uncertain. The sound of someone caught between worlds' childhood innocence lingering in a man already carrying too many shadows. His friend saw only the charm, the restless energy, the boy who could light up a room just by stepping into it. But behind his eyes was a flicker, a quiet storm brewing, one that only a few had glimpsed and fewer understood. On that October night, the Viper Room was alive, its walls vibrating with music, chatter, and the promise of another Hollywood evening. Johnny Depp's club had become a sanctuary for the young and famous, a place where the weight of the cameras outside could be shrugged off for a few stolen hours. River, barely 23, was there with his younger siblings, his girlfriend, his closest circle. To them, it was just another night, a night to celebrate, to escape. No one imagined the seconds ticking away like the final beats of a clock about to stop. Inside, River's face shifted between brightness and unease. There was a fragility in his smile that no one seemed to question, a thin veil over something more dangerous, something urgent. Drinks were poured, conversations spilled over each other, and River slipped in and out of the crowd like a ghost already halfway gone. The music swelled, the bass pounded, and still something darker pressed at the edges. Outside, the strip was alive with chaos. Cars pulling in and out, tourists gawking at the velvet ropes, flashes from cameras that caught only fragments of the truth. A chill ran through the night air, unnoticed by most, but heavy enough to make one wonder if fate itself had paused for a breath. River stepped out into that night, the coolness of the sidewalk under his feet, the dizzying rush of sound behind him. His hands trembled. His voice cracked as he tried to speak, tried to call out. There was panic in his eyes, the kind of panic that can't be rehearsed, can't be hidden. His body convulsed once, then again, collapsing into the arms of a city that had both crowned him a prince and cursed him to burn out before his time. Screams broke the hum of traffic. His brother Joaquin's voice carried into the night, desperate, begging, breaking. His sister clutched his hand, helpless, watching the light drain from the face that had once been their family's brightest beacon. People crowded, flashes went off. Whispers spread faster than help could arrive. In those frantic minutes, the myth of River Phoenix began to crystallize. The boy who was supposed to be the next James Dean, the savior of Hollywood's future, the rebel with a soul too gentle for the machine, was fighting for his life on a dirty stretch of Sunset Boulevard. Every breath was a battle. Every second was a countdown. The city didn't stop. Cars honked. Music still throbbed from the club. Somewhere inside, people danced, oblivious. But outside, under the cruel glow of neon, a legend was unraveling before the world could even realize it was watching. And then, silence. The crowd held its breath. Joaquin's cries cut through the night like shattered glass. River's chest heaved, once, twice, then stilled. In that moment, under the indifferent Los Angeles sky, the promise of a lifetime flickered like a candle in the wind. But was it fate? Was it excess? Or was there something more hidden beneath the glitter and the headlines? Something no one dared to say out loud. Not then, not ever. Because the truth of River Phoenix's final night was more tangled, more mysterious than anyone could imagine. And the secrets it left behind were about to echo far beyond that cracked sidewalk, pulling us deeper into a darkness that has never fully lifted. The city did not sleep after that night. Word spread faster than the flashing bulbs that had captured River's last moments, faster than the sirens that tore down Sunset Boulevard. By dawn, Los Angeles was already buzzing with whispers, fragments of stories, none of them complete, all of them heavy with disbelief. The boy wonder, the golden child, the star who was supposed to outshine them all, was gone. 23 years old, and his promise scattered like ashes into the morning haze. Outside the Viper Room, the sidewalk had turned into a shrine. Flowers appeared before the sun had fully risen, photographs taped to the walls, candles trembling in the breeze. Strangers wept as if they had lost a brother, as if they had known him personally, because in some way they had. River had been open, raw, unpolished in a world that polished everything until it gleamed with falseness. People felt they had touched his soul, even from a theater seat. And now that soul is gone, But not everyone believed the story as it was told. A seizure, an overdose, a tragic accident. These were the words used in the headlines. Words easy enough to package and print. Yet, those who had seen him in those final hours, those who had heard the cries, the confusion, the panic, felt something didn't add up. There was chaos in the way he fell, terror in his eyes, and a silence from certain voices that seemed too carefully chosen. Hollywood was shaken, but Hollywood also knew how to move on quickly. Studios scrambled to rewrite scripts, to replace roles River had been set to fill. Journalists clawed at the tragedy for details to feed a hungry public. Friends, real ones, hid away, unwilling to be pulled into the carnival of spectacle. And his family, his brother Joaquin, his sister Rain, his parents were left in a fog that no spotlight could ever cut through. The Viper Room itself became a place of eerie legend. People would stand at the exact spot where River collapsed, tracing the cracks in the pavement as if they could feel the ghost of that night. Musicians swore they could sense him lingering in the club. The young man who had been too pure for the machine, he was trapped inside. Some even whispered that the walls of the Viper Room held more than music and secrets that they had watched, silently, as something darker unfolded, and the questions began. What had River taken? Who had given it to him? Why was there so much silence from those who had been there? Why did pieces of his last night seem to vanish in conflicting reports, as if the truth itself had been redacted? The official story was neat. Too neat. A tragic overdose. A young life cut short by the same temptations that had claimed so many before him. But behind closed doors, friends whispered of things that didn't make the papers. Of people who left before the ambulance arrived. Of phone calls made and never repeated. Of fear, palpable fear that if the whole truth surfaced, too many names would be stained, too many careers destroyed. And as the city mourned, one question lingered heavier than all the rest. Was River Phoenix simply another victim of excess? Or was he caught in something far more sinister? Something Hollywood itself was desperate to bury? The night had ended, but the mystery was only beginning. The world awoke to the news with disbelief. River Phoenix, the boy who had been too good, too fragile, too brilliant to fall, was gone at just 23. Morning radio hosts struggled to speak through stunned pauses. Television anchors repeated the same carefully chosen words: overdose, seizure, tragic accident, as if reciting a script designed to comfort rather than explain. Newspapers splashed his face across their front pages, a face caught between youth and manhood, eyes too earnest to belong to a casualty of Hollywood's darker undercurrents. Outside the Viper Room, the pavement where he collapsed became sacred ground. Fans flocked from all corners of Los Angeles, some clutching photographs, others candles, many with nothing but tears. Strangers hugged one another, as if united by a grief too heavy to bear alone. The sidewalk shimmered with melted wax, with handwritten notes that blurred in the night fog. Tourists snapped pictures of the shrine, but those who lingered swore they could still feel a presence in the air, as if the last echo of River's spirit clung stubbornly to the spot. The media frenzy fed on every morsel it could find. Reporters traced his final hours, following him into the Viper Room, cataloging every witness, every fragment of rumor. He had been laughing, then pale, then shaking, then screaming. The accounts blurred together, contradictory and frantic. Some claimed he had taken a dangerous cocktail of drugs. Others whispered of something slipped into his drink. The official report spoke of lethal mixtures, but no one could explain the speed, the violence, the suddenness with which his body gave out. Hollywood's machine churned with mechanical efficiency. Studios grieved publicly, then quietly recast the roles River had been meant to play. Scripts were rewritten overnight. Casting directors held their auditions with barely a pause. To the industry, tragedy was currency, but business was survival. And yet, behind closed doors, among those who had truly known him, There was a silence thicker than grief. Joaquin Phoenix, still just a teenager, was hurled into a spotlight he had never sought. His desperate 911 call had already been replayed on radio stations, dissected by tabloids, broadcast to millions. His voice panicked, trembling, begging for help as his brother convulsed beside him became part of the legend. But Joaquin withdrew, retreating into shadows, his silence as heavy as the grief in his eyes. He could not, or would not, speak of that night. Nor would Rain, nor would Samantha, nor would Johnny Depp, whose club had become the stage of this tragedy. All who had been there seemed wrapped in a pact of silence, as though the truth itself was too dangerous to touch, and so the rumors grew. Some swore they had seen River hours earlier, trembling in a corner, whispering about quitting Hollywood altogether. Others claimed he had been offered a cocktail of substances by someone whose name never appeared in police reports. Still others spoke of shadowy figures ushered quickly out the back door of the Viper Room as River collapsed in front. Names circulated, always whispered, never printed. The official narrative remained clean. A young star, overwhelmed, consumed by excess. But River Phoenix was not the stereotype. He was not the reckless party boy, not the arrogant rising star. He was quiet, thoughtful, vegan before it was fashionable, deeply connected to his family, often uncomfortable with fame's glare. He spoke of environmental causes, of music, of living simply. Friends described him as fragile, yes, but not reckless. A boy too gentle for the firestorm of Hollywood, yet not careless enough to throw his life away so easily. Which left the question, why? Why did a young man who seemed so careful, so wary of Hollywood's excesses, collapse so violently on that October night? Why did witnesses disagree so wildly on what he had taken, on who was with him, on the exact moment his life began to slip away? Why were certain details never released, certain testimonies sealed, certain people unaccounted for? And why, above all, did his family retreat into a silence so absolute it felt orchestrated? They did not grant interviews. They did not attend the vigils. They did not seek to explain or defend. They disappeared, as if to shield themselves or to shield something else. Meanwhile, the myth of River Phoenix swelled. He was compared endlessly to James Dean, another star extinguished too soon. Magazines wrote of him as a prophet of lost youth, a casualty of an industry that consumed its brightest. His films, once modest successes, were now treasures, dissected for hidden meanings. Every interview he had ever given was replayed, quoted, studied for prophetic lines. And always the same haunting image: River's body, crumpled on the sidewalk, neon lights casting shadows across a face that once held so much promise. But there was another image, one never printed, only described in hushed tones. River's eyes in those last moments wide not with the haze of drugs, but with terror. Terror, as if he had seen something or someone that no one else did. Those who loved him could not bring themselves to speak of it. Those who had seen it up close refused to say more. And the more silence pressed in, the louder the questions grew. What really happened on the night River Phoenix died? The world was desperate for answers. But the answers, it seemed, were being buried deeper and deeper, beneath grief, beneath fear, beneath a city that thrived on secrets. And somewhere in those secrets, in the shadows of Hollywood's most notorious club, a truth still waited. A truth darker than the official reports, darker than the rumors, darker than anything River himself might have feared. The truth of River Phoenix's death had not yet been told. And if it ever surfaced, it threatened to shake far more than one young actor's legacy. It threatened to expose the very machinery of Hollywood itself, and that was something too many were willing to keep hidden. For now, the weeks after River Phoenix's death were a blur of grief and spectacle. The industry machine rolled forward with its polished statements, its carefully worded condolences. its endless comparisons to James Dean. But beneath the public mourning was a current of unease. Something about the story didn't sit right. Something about the way the details were pieced together felt incomplete, fragile, like a puzzle with missing pieces deliberately swept aside. The autopsy confirmed what the headlines had already screamed: a lethal cocktail of drugs. But the numbers raised questions. The mix was bizarre, inconsistent with what those closest to River swore he would ever willingly consume. His friends whispered that he didn't drink heavily, that he avoided hard substances, that the very idea of him indulging in such a deadly blend felt alien. Yes, he had been restless in recent months, troubled even. But reckless? No. Those who knew him best insisted the official narrative was far too neat. Journalists tried to dig deeper, but doors slammed quickly. The Viper Room's staff grew silent. Witnesses contradicted each other, then disappeared from interviews. Friends who had been with River that night suddenly refused to talk, some vanishing from the public eye altogether. Hollywood's tight circle closed ranks, and the truth was blurred by a fog of silence. His family's retreat only fueled speculation. Joaquin refused interviews, broken by grief and disgusted by the way tabloids replayed his desperate 911 call. Rain clung to her privacy. Their parents turned inward, their voices quiet, unwilling to feed the machine that had devoured their son. It was as if the entire Phoenix family had built a wall around themselves, guarding not only their pain, but perhaps something darker, something they could not say. In the months that followed, River's name became legend. His films re-released, his music unearthed, his image immortalized on posters and murals. Fans treated him as a martyr, a symbol of innocence destroyed by Hollywood's dark underbelly. Candlelight vigils stretched for weeks outside the Viper Room. The sidewalks stained permanently with melted wax, flowers constantly renewed, messages scrawled across the concrete. But the rumors refused to die. Some claimed River had been experimenting with new music and that he had clashed with powerful figures in the industry. Others whispered of an argument inside the club that night, a confrontation never reported, involving faces too recognizable to be exposed. There were even murmurs of substances being slipped into drinks, of an untraceable hand in his downfall. Every story was different, yet every story shared the same haunting truth. Too many people were afraid to speak. And then there was the Viper Room itself. The club carried a haunted reputation from that night forward. Musicians claimed to feel cold spots on stage, sudden chills while performing. Bartenders reported glasses shattering on their own, lights flickering in the corners. Patrons swore they saw River's reflection in mirrors, standing where he had last smiled, last laughed, last lived. The building became both shrine and tomb, a place where music thrived but shadows lingered, whispering reminders of a story unfinished. Investigators quietly admitted to inconsistencies. Some reports didn't match. Timelines blurred. Witness accounts clashed. Certain details, names, times, movements were redacted, withheld, or simply vanished from public record. It was as though the truth had been carefully pruned, leaving only a version of events that could be safely told. But the truth has a way of leaving echoes. And those echoes began to stir. In private, friends admitted to feeling hunted, watched, as though speaking too much about River's last hours might cost them dearly. Some insisted he had spoken in the days before his death of pressures mounting, of forces tightening around him, of a dread he could not shake. He wanted out of Hollywood, out of the spotlight, out of the cage that fame had built for him. But could he ever truly escape? The questions grew darker. Had River Phoenix simply fallen victim to his own fragility? Or had his fall been orchestrated, engineered, hidden beneath the smokescreen of an overdose? Who stood to gain from his silence? And why did so many who might have known the truth refuse to speak, as if their very lives depended on it? By the end of that first year without him, the city had woven him into its mythology, Yet the mystery remained. River's face was painted on murals, his voice replayed in grainy interviews, his films dissected by scholars searching for messages he never meant to leave. But beneath the murals, beneath the tributes, beneath the industry's polished sorrow, the cracks in the story still pulsed like an unhealed wound. And somewhere, in the corners of Hollywood, where secrets are currency, whispers of that night still traveled. Whispers that suggested River Phoenix had seen something, had known something, had carried a burden far heavier than anyone realized. Something he might have been ready to reveal. Something that someone, somewhere, could not allow to surface. The truth was out there, buried beneath silence and fear. And the deeper one looked, the more dangerous the shadows became. Because River Phoenix's death was not just the end of a young star. It was the beginning of a mystery that still haunts the heart of Hollywood. And what lies ahead in that darkness may be far more terrifying than anyone dares to admit. River Phoenix's story is not just about a boy who died too young. It is about the cost of innocence in a world built on shadows. His laughter, his music, his fire, they still echo in the hearts of those who remember. But the truth of that night remains sealed, guarded by silence, lost in the whispers of Hollywood's darkest corners. Some say his spirit never left the sidewalk outside the Viper Room, that he lingers still, waiting for the truth to surface. And perhaps that is the real mystery. Not how River Phoenix died, but why the world was never allowed to know what truly happened. Because sometimes, the most haunting stories are the ones that end in silence.